So the final kit we have for January is the Paperwhite and Twig Kit. Now, Paperwhites are obviously, they're a narcissi, they're a sort of a miniature, kind of like a daffodil, I suppose, but they're teeny tiny and they're scented beautifully, and they're really delicate and shorter. So it's a lovely, lovely kit. It's one of my favourites. They are, yeah, a really, really beautiful early spring, sort of midwinter bulb, and I think you're really going to like it. So in your kit you'll have your bulbs. You'll have 3 bulbs, 3 Paperwhite bulbs. On each stem you'll have sort of quite an abundance of flowers. You'll then have your gravel and your compost and your mosses and your dried twiggy bits. So you'll have your birch, your cherry blossom and your dried thyme, and then of course your resin dipped pot, which we've bought back for January. We used them when we first started Hello Petal, and yeah, just thought I'd bring them back for a change for January. And then in February we're going back to our beautiful Birds Potter pots. I might keep these in as well and sort of mix them up a little bit, but yeah, hopefully you just enjoy having something different for a month in your kits. Okay, let's begin. So you're going to add in all of your gravel that's in your brown paper bag. Whoops. So that's just to make sure that the roots aren't sort of sitting constantly in water, which is more likely to kill the bulbs, because they might develop root rot. So it's just to add a bit of drainage. We're then going to add in our compost. Now, compost wise, you need to sort of add probably all of it. It is measured, but you know, it's not an exact science, but I would say probably up to about just around an inch from the top of the pot. So get it all in. You can also add in the compost that you will have in your pots of bulbs as well. Okay, so you take your pot of bulbs, so you will have 3 bulbs, 3 Paperwhites, and then you can sort of tease the root structure. If it's a little bit pot bound, it won't damage the bulbs at all. It might make it easier to then lift it out. And then you're going to sort of break your bulbs down into 3. Now, I know this seems a bit brutal, but it's fine. They will be absolutely fine. Their root structures are nice and sturdy. I probably should do this over the pot. So any soil can go into the pot. These roots are amazing. Okay, so you've now got your 3 bulbs and you've got your compost in your pot. Now I do a sort of technique if it's quite heavily rooted. You can trim them if you want to, but if not, you can just simply twirl them in the palm of your hand to make a sort of nest of roots, and then you simply sort of bury it gently into the compost. So you're just sort of twisting it in the palm of your hand, and then just sort of gently pushing it into the compost. Now these are very young, they arrived yesterday, so they're really fresh. The shoot isn't particularly sort of prominent yet. It will be, especially now that I brought them in. But yes, yours will probably be similar, you know, just so that you enjoy it for as long as possible, rather than it be with us and, you know, already sort of getting going. You get to enjoy it right from the beginning, so yeah, your bulbs will arrive nice and fresh. Okay, now we're going to add in our moss. So you have your flat moss, which is this sort of carpet-like moss, and then you have your bun moss, which is the chunkier version. So you're simply going to add in your moss, break it up, and then just tuck it in around your bulbs. And then when using the bun moss, you can take off the root structure, which is this sort of brown bit at the back, just by sort of snapping it off. Makes it sit a bit better on top of the compost. Okay, so that's the moss in. And now, if you want to, you can lift your bulbs slightly so that they sit a bit better on top of the moss and you see more of that beautiful kind of papery texture. So you simply push the moss down with your hand either side of the bulb and then simply lift just a little bit, not high, and then you sit it back down. So you can now see that bulb, they're not sort of hidden. This one's quite protruding out of the moss, gosh. And then this one at the front. Okay, so those are your 3 bulbs, all sort of nestled in amongst its moss, and then we can add in the sort of twiggy bits. So you have the dried birch, the cherry blossom, and the dried thyme. So I'm going to start with the cherry blossom. You will have probably around 5 sort of stems of cherry blossom. Now, although when the bulbs arrive with you, they'll probably be quite young, like they are here, I would advise keeping the twigs longer, just so that you can then use them to support your paperwhites as they grow. If your paperwhites are in sort of quite a warm room, they will be more what we would call leggy, which means they might not have quite such a sturdy stem, so they will need a little bit of support. So adding in the birch next, and again, just adding it near the bulbs so that when they get tall, you can use it to support your bulbs. You can sort of wrap it around, sort of create sort of almost like a nest-like feel, a woodland feel. So keep your your twigs quite long. And although it might look a little bit sort of top-heavy at first and sort of a bit out of proportion, as they start to grow, you will see that actually it works really well. Okay. And then the dried thyme. Now the dried thyme is shorter, and in your kits you won't have loads, it's just sort of a touch, just to add a different kind of texture, a different tone of green. But yeah, it will be probably, you know, between sort of 5, probably 5 sort of little sections. I break it down quite a lot, so they're all quite small. I don't want the tone of the dried thyme to be the dominant green. I want the dominant green to be the fresh green of the bulb and the moss. So this is purely just to add a little bit of contrast. Okay, so that's now all potted up. In terms of care for your paperwhites, you need to keep them, the compost damp. Don't let it dry out. Pop it somewhere as cool and bright as possible in your home. It's not a big deal if that place in your home doesn't exist. Just put it wherever is coolest. The reason being is that if you have it somewhere cool, you will, your bulbs will develop a really strong root system, which in turn will develop a really strong stem. If you put it somewhere really, really warm, they will grow quickly and their sort of legs will be kind of a bit sort of droopy, I guess, but that's what the twigs are for. So don't worry, it's really not crucial that it's really cool, just somewhere that's cool enough, not near a radiator or next to a fire. So, you know, on a kitchen island, on a bookshelf, on a side table, on a dining table, on your kitchen table, that's sort of where in my head I thought they would look beautiful in your homes in January. So yeah, that is it. So that is your Paperwhite and Twig Kit.